And we are live. Good late evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Bigfoot Odyssey's late show. Not as late as normal. We usually do it about 30 minutes later than this. But we got our good friend Mark Zaskey here, and he's on the East Coast in Florida. So I said we'll do it about 30 minutes earlier. That way we can get some good stuff out of him. I'm your host, Carrie Arnold. With me, as always, producer. Not producer. He's just a co-host. He's a field producer for the travel show.
I'm the camera bag carrier.
Yeah, Bradley Hatcher. How are you, sir?
I'm doing good, Carrie. How are you?
I was doing all right, but I got over it. We've been putting up Christmas lights and all that good stuff. But our guest for this evening, he's the creator of Crypto Reality. You can find that on Patreon. I think it was $1.99 a month for some incredible footage and just knowledge about the South Florida Bigfoot. Mr. Mark Zaskey, welcome, sir.
How you guys doing?
Man, we are
good. Mark,
we're here.
I subscribe to your Patreon channel, and it is good.
Oh, you do?
It's really good. I do.
I try to message people when they join at first, but during the last, 6 months or so, it's been rough, man. So if I didn't get to you, the COVID thing's been, we've all had to make a lot of changes in our life around here.
Well, you're gone a lot, aren't you?
Yeah, just, with my job, fishing a lot, pretty much. Yeah.
Oh, how beautiful.
Yeah. Must be horrible to have to fish for a living. To have to fish for a living. But hey, let's give a shout out to Duke Spirits. They support Bigfoot Odyssey. Thank you so much, Duke Spirits. We appreciate you. All right.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you, guys.
I don't drink very much of it, but it is good. You check out Duke Spirits online, dukespirits.com, right?
I believe so.
It's John Wayne's recipe, and his son Ethan Wayne and Chris
Radomski.
Chris Radomski, that's right, have taken that recipe, and now it's really good. Anyway, kids, don't drink. Everybody else drink responsibly. Let's go ahead and say that. But let's get into it. Mark and I were talking earlier. We decided that we're going to talk about the state of the Bigfoot subject, but there's some specific things I want to talk about with the creatures in your area. I don't kick me in the teeth because I call them creatures. Okay, it's just a label. Okay, so there are a lot of people out there, quote unquote, researching for what it's worth. But when it comes to actual data collection, I think you've kind of cornered the market on that from anyone that I've seen. I know you put as much of it out there as you can, but you don't put out nearly as much as what you collect, do you?
No, no way. The other thing too is we see variations that are so drastic that the term creatures is not offensive to me at all. There are individuals that we've been able to document that look very human-like, and then there are individuals that are something else and appear to be more non-human primate, I guess would be the right way to say it. But in the beginning, it was, they're human, because my sighting, what I saw was, a big guy. He was just covered in hair and real muscular, But,
and he had long hair on his head, right?
He had human hair. Yeah. He had a big, it looked like rock star hair, man, and unkept, it looked actually kind of shiny and clean and nice, but it was uncut, it was
right
all the way around his face. You can really see it until, when he leaned out, I got a good look at him. But yeah, there's a lot of interesting stuff going on here in Florida with the research. I think that probably the biggest shock to me was that any of this was actually real, because I'd spent so much time in the place where I'm filming most of the time. I mean, a lot of people, I've had comments or people that will say things like, it's impossible to film this many Bigfoot. This can't be real. But it's not that we're filming that many Bigfoot. We're in the same place with the same group constantly. And that's been our whole thing, is that once we've identified the habitat that these guys were in there through identification of tracks and trackways with very specific characteristics or interaction where we either had violent interaction where things were thrown at us from the brush, or we've had screams, yells, general objections to us being in the territory, or we've just flat out seen the individuals. So basically empirical evidence. A lot of people don't understand that is simple observation. It's simple observation, gaining data through simple observation. There are a lot of things that in the Bigfoot research community are completely misunderstood, which you and I were talking about earlier. But as far as data collection goes, I think we've been fortunate that we were able to find an area because I'd seen one, and that got us started. And that area taught us a lot about how to find other areas, you know. So we've been collecting. At this point, we have hair, we have scat, we have unidentifiable hair samples. There's no database on in the country or online that contains the hair samples that we have. They've been unidentified. They are being tested. They're outside the country right now being tested, and they've been being tested for over a year now, possibly 2 years even, about 2 years really, because another sample from one of our research areas made its way to another country about 2 years ago. So there's a lot of stuff going on that nobody knows about. We quietly busy ourselves with our work, and then we you know, in order to maintain the funding, we put it out to the people that help fund our work, right? But a lot of people don't know that the data does exist. You know what I mean? We have the data, and the problem really, Carrie, has been that. And this is what I was talking with.
He's wrapped
Accident.
Come here, baby.
He is wrapped up in the car. He was about to unplug me.
Uh-oh.
Sit down.
There he is, little guy.
Bring him back in here.
So sorry about that.
That's okay, man. Hey.
So is that what's missing here, Mark? Is it
The problem, Carrie, what we were talking about earlier, we nailed it, right? The problem is this, right? There's a sacrifice that has to be made, right, by someone, right? Now we've made our sacrifices, and we continue to do so, but we've put so much time in the field to glean the data that we have that, and you know, I mean, it would take it takes a lot of going over the amount of data that we have in every area of this research that we have concerning behaviors, concerning locations, concerning temperatures, concerning sun positions, concerning just about everything. One of the things that we're really upset about as long-term field researchers is that who've been pulling valuable data from the field is that mainstream scientists are avoiding it at all costs, including scientists that are heavily involved in the Bigfoot subject. Personally sent emails to several different television personalities who front that they're very interested in physical evidence and proving Sasquatch is real. And these people flat out refuse to look at our evidence, citing ridiculous excuses. If I have if I have a piece of physical evidence, the physical evidence is very easily examined by someone with with like, you know, a set of eyes and some hands, man. It doesn't take you know, all the excuses. What we've seen is 100 excuses from 50 different scientists as to why they won't even look at what we have. And when we show them what we have, they can admit that they've never seen anything like it. The hair, I've shown 11 or 12 different scientists the hair. They can't identify it. It's very expensive to test. These people, they would need to make an investment, and that would require a self-sacrifice. I think this kind of leads right into what we were talking about, Carrie. The only way this is going to happen is if somebody's willing to lose it all and come forward, and they're going to be crucified over it.
Yeah, someone's going to have to martyr themselves.
Yeah,
they're going to have to martyr themselves. But
somebody.
There have to be other researchers out there pushing forward. You know, we're seeing a lot of the same old thing, and I'm not saying it's a bad thing. You know, a lot of people out there are looking for evidence. They're looking for foot tracks, whatever, trying to get that scream, that tree knock. And but documentation, that, you know, you are big on documentation, and order is not always a good thing. Chaos is not always a bad thing. You know, order, tyranny is order. You know, chaos is opportunity sometimes. But the things that you do, you have all this stuff not just written down. You've got banks and banks and banks of info from the last 6 years. What would you tell the average person out there looking for Bigfoot, the basic stuff to do just to push forward a little bit?
Well, I would say that there's a requirement. There's a requirement to even know that they're where you are, and the requirement is a degree of awareness and a degree of self-awareness, and what you're thinking, that most people can't. They can't. It just doesn't work. It doesn't work. I've taken many people in the field, and I've had many people with me, and they don't understand that the tree that's being ripped out of the ground or broken in half is not wind. We're standing here, and my wife just screamed out a name, and a tree was instantly ripped from the ground or broken in half, and that's wind. I could do this. We could do this at will, on command. The problem is this: what's going through the average researcher's head is not enough to even begin to fathom the depth of how embedded these creatures are in the environment. As human beings, it's not even a part of our consciousness, the way these creatures live. It's not a possibility for us. So it's not a possibility for us to fathom what these creatures live like. And when I talk about being embedded, the best thing that a researcher can do, and I say this, and I've said this from the beginning, and I'll always say this, is you need to familiarize yourself with the dirt and get real comfortable in it, in the dirt, because that's where they live, on the ground, in the dirt. And they're very comfortable in the water and in the mud and in the cold and in the heat. And they're very intelligent. And more than likely, if you're actually researching in an area that's got them, they've been watching you the whole time, and you have felt it, and you have heard, and you have freaked out, and you've done all these things, but you just can't seem to get them on film because you don't know a few key things about their physical makeup. But the data exists that can explain this to you if you're willing to listen.
Yeah, you know, whoa. Got a little feedback going there. I don't know. Come on, go away. All right, it went away. You know, I see this a lot. There's a lot of poke and hope. Of course, obviously, you need a viable area, and I see a lot of researchers just going out to the woods and giving it a try. You know, whether they don't really know whether there's anything there or not, or they might have found something that's suspicious. You know, so obviously that comes into play is finding a viable area, but the data collection, when you do find that viable area, I can't tell you how many people that I know personally that look for Sasquatch. They go out there and they hear that knock or a growl or some whoop in the distance, and they're ready to go. Oh, I think we need to get out of here. That has to change. I think that's the part that, to me, that's got to change.
Yeah, we're there to record. We're there to document. We're there to observe, record and document. And so you can't do that, obviously. I mean, there's definitely a time to leave. And that definitely is a line that is much closer in the beginning, right? You know what I mean? Because you don't know what's going on, and you're suddenly confronted with, what was that? You know what I mean? And was that actually what we're looking for? And if that is, what does that mean? Does it mean that the world isn't what I think it is? And there's a million things going on, and it's definitely not research-oriented thinking.
Don't you have to remove that, though? Shouldn't you just assume
that's the thing. As you continue on, the line that you're willing to tolerate as far as danger or fear within yourself, which is really, when I talk about you have to Pay attention to what you're thinking. What you think controls what you do. These are the things I'm talking about, right? And so in learning the patterns of what goes on when you're in a place, repetitive, going in, doing the same exact things. You go in the same way, you go out the same way. You spend the same amount of time in the area. You don't do anything different. You walk the exact same trail. You don't do anything different. What happens is they get used to your patterns, and they'll begin to set up shop so they can observe everything you do in every step of the way throughout their area. And it's that whole game that once you realize has begun to take place, you now have the upper hand in. They don't know you know. They don't know you know. And so what the changes in thinking are necessary, first of all, to actually remain objective in a situation where we've all been trained through television and online, those wonderful experiences we have on Facebook saying Bigfoot's real, and then someone breaks it off in our asses, right? It says, you're an idiot, right? You're an idiot. That's what they do. Yeah. In the end, that fucks with you as a researcher. When you're in there, you want to question everything. Question everything. You're supposed to question everything, right? But objective is what actually brings data, right? You want to be objective and then examine the data later. See, skepticism will first of all put you in a very dangerous situation if you're in a research area that actually is active with these guys that are real. I mean, they're there. Right? There's enough eyewitnesses. You can't be that silly to not think they're real. Right? These are mothers, fathers, sisters, brothers. This is Carrie. This is me. I don't know. Brad, have you had the opportunity yet?
Yes.
Okay. So like we're looking at this whole thing and you're in the field, you know they're real. If you've got a viable area, then you got to start doing the right things. But thinking is where it all starts. And it doesn't start with skepticism, contrary to popular beliefs. And in my research areas, skepticism will get you killed. And Carrie that. This is no joke.
Real quick, I was going to, since it sounds like it was a baptism by fire for you, how long did it take you to start doing everything repetitive and just like what you just said? You know, so they know your routine. So, you know, they'll set up shop and watch you and then you can observe.
Well, I had the added benefit of having seen one. So, and mine wasn't like Carrie's. Now, see, that might have changed the entire situation had I had that experience, a frightening encounter. Mine was amazing. I was amazed, and I was far enough away that I didn't have to, the physical presence, and he showed no aggression towards us. So, but it didn't affect me the way that it affected, you know, in a situation like Carrie's with the threatening behavior, the aggression, that kind of thing. So our research took a different turn, but from square one, I was scared to death. The first time I took Melanie into the research area, we were 2 miles from where I saw the thing, and I wasn't going that way. I wasn't going over there. I wasn't going to go in there. I didn't want to go in there. I said, okay, well, we're in the area. We're just going to go for a hike over here because this is far enough away where that thing ain't over here. You know what I mean? And she still found an 18-inch track in the area that day, which is why crypto reality happened. Because if she wouldn't have found that track, she wouldn't have been so amazed and become so interested. And the next thing you know, it wasn't, fuck you, I don't want to do this. This is ridiculous. It was, wow, is this really real? And I was like, you want to see for yourself? Let's do it, you know? So we did it.
The first time you and I went out to the slough, we found a track. It was about a 9-inch track, but it was a barefoot in the middle of nowhere. And it was a pretty perfect, pretty pristine. But it was weird shaped, you know, almost like emaciated looking.
Yeah.
And I know you had
that individual. I have that same individual's track over a 6-year period, and it's emaciated. It's been emaciated the whole time. I mean, the bone structure, it's exactly the same individual. 6 different years in a row in the exact same spot we found a track that you found.
Do you think there are some of them that are just not doing very well?
I'm sure it's possible. I mean, we don't know enough about how they're doing other than to say that there are quite a few more than we thought, and they're eating. I'm convinced at this point, since we found carcasses and we find areas that have been eaten on, that they're omnivores in Florida, at least the ones we're researching, right? They're definitely killing animals. They cleaned out our first research area, which was packed inside of like 9 months. There were no squirrels. There were no nothing. No, even the small lizards are gone. We got millions of these little lizards, or 3 to 5 to 6 inches long, all over every tree. The snakes, everything, gone. Nothing. And then they'll move out and let it replenish and then come right back in. This has been the pattern every year. They clean it out and it replenishes. They come back in. So it's really fascinating. I think to go back and put it, we would never have any of this if it wasn't for the changes that we intentionally made and the consciousness that we brought, where we weren't going to be skeptical. We weren't going to assume anything, but we were going to follow up correctly. That's the thing. Follow up. Yeah, we heard knocks. And the first couple times I really did not want to go over there. But after a while, you're like, okay, man, you got to think about this. How many opportunities are you going to have? And are you calling yourself a researcher? Are you online calling yourself a cryptozoologist, man? Because if you are, and you're writing a book and that's all you're doing, because cryptozoology is a fucking field science, no matter how many books you write, pal. Okay? And in the end, you got to get in the field. And when you get in the field and you change that noggin and all that crap that everybody's filled your head with, the bush and they will tell you what to do next. If you're observant, if you're documenting, if you're recording properly, and you're processing that data, every experience, every day from every expedition, what happened? What time of day was it? What direction was it coming from? Were there tracks? What direction were they headed? How many times did we find tracks heading in that direction? Is there a den in that direction? You got to start asking the questions. You look at the data, you formulate questions, you formulate theory, hypothesis, and then you go in and develop theory and you experiment. One of our experiments was with peanut butter to see if they like to eat it. And also, because it takes hands to unscrew the lid, right, it's an excellent DNA trap. So once we knew we had a spot, we started leaving peanut butter jars. Carrie, you saw the leftovers.
Oh, look, the day we went, I don't know what that back feed is. It's killing me.
That was by the way, that was a 26-month experiment. You saw the results of 26 months laying all in there, right?
Look, when we went over there, what you call the island, what the park officials call no man's land. Okay, we're over there, and where you had been throwing them across the canal for months, there were probably 4 or 5 there. Perfect. Some had chew marks on them where the squirrels or whatever had gotten into it, but some where the lid was off, there's nothing in it, and they're all laying in the same place. Now, that's where I got a glimpse. You know, the one that I zoomed in on, that I got just the brow ridge, and it was like clear. And because I thought I was looking at something there and I didn't know. And I put my camera over there and I zoomed in on it really quick. And I was like, it's a shadow. And I'm watching you do a segment, right? I'm kind of standing up this hill. The canal is right behind me. And you and Melanie are down here doing a little segment. And I'm looking and I can see outline, apex, but it's only like 4 feet tall. And it is behind palm fronds. Okay. It's kind of like it's a shadow or something. And it's, I don't know, 50, 60 yards away. It's got some distance to it, but I'm up above everything and I'm looking and I'm like, and I look down, I'm watching, I look back over and it was gone. It was just, it was such, I got that sinking feeling again. And it was then, I was like, we need to get out of here. They're actually here, even though I knew in my head they were there.
When we were standing there, we were standing right where you've seen from the other side of the canal. Those individuals were standing right there watching us. And you were standing where they were. All they did, Carrie, was retreat 60 yards. Yeah. And then as we move, they keep that perimeter. We move this way, they keep that perimeter. You move forward, they move back. You stop for a while, they're going to move in and try to see what you're doing. This is them, and they do it all over the country the same way, man. Recon is simple. There's only one way to do it, man. You know what I'm saying? Undetected, right? Undetected. So start thinking, because I'm telling you, if you're in an area and you're researching and they're playing this cat and mouse shit with you, that's what they're doing. They're engaged in a serious recon of what you're doing in their territory. They do the same thing to deer. If you're in the South, they do it to hogs. If you're in the Pacific Northwest, elk, caribou, all that stuff, same thing, man. Their existence, I'm convinced based on our work that their existence, 95% of it is sitting still, being quiet and watching for ungulates, deer, hogs, and the little stuff is easy, man. Possums and squirrel and all that. We've seen them shaking the trees and leading, driving the squirrels, and then they'll pull a tree out of the way. It'll jump to the next tree. They'll snatch the tree out of the way. And the squirrel fall right down in their hands. We've seen this. Happen. Yeah, man. We know how they hunt that, but the thing is you don't think they're there. No one thinks they're there. Well, they're obviously not running around in circles tearing shit up, right? Because we'd know about it, right? So they're sitting still, and that's not about you. That's about food, right? Because they do eat meat. They do.
Mark, you're gonna have to put like $20 in the swear jar.
I am. How many bombs?
Like 4 or 5. I don't know.
Sorry, guys.
It's okay. There's just kids watching. That's all. And I know you're look.
Sorry about that.
I work in the oil field, so when we're not on here, it's really not good. Most people probably wouldn't. They would just turn the channel immediately. But yeah. So if I had a swear jar, yeah, like $20, but it's all right. So
really? Was it like 5 times?
No, it was like 4. $5 a pop. So that's okay. I'll get it from you later. Now we are supposed to be coming down there December 3rd, 4th, 5th for that weekend. And fingers crossed that we get to go, because I have to go back to work. I did get called back out, and I just, it's weighing. Do I go make the film? Do I go make the money? and we really
gotta get that money.
Yeah, we really need it. So I might be able to get away. I'll know by Friday whether or not we're going down there. If not, we're going to push it to the next 3rd and 4th. That's all. We're going to come down there and make this film. And then we've got the expedition that's coming up in the spring. That's still on. And Brad is going to be a part of that. We've shortened up. We've cut the crew way down. So for that particular filming, but Mark, you and I are going to go in and make the crypto reality documentary. Essentially, the Odyssey of crypto reality is the story that I want to tell personally, and I definitely appreciate you and Melanie doing this for us. But we just went up and filmed with Mark Copeland, and I've got the intro done, and I've got about 10 minutes of really, really good stuff done. I've been working so much. I apologize to you guys. Give me some time. I'm getting this thing together. Number 13 is going to be out soon. So one of these things, one of the coolest stories I ever heard you tell was when you were, because I know you made a lot of mistakes doing this, and I know you're the first one to admit that you've just gone after them and learned a lot in doing that. But you would go in one little spot on a little like a date palm, I think. It's got the little curved like a little seat, and you send Melanie in where you could try to catch one coming, and you did that like 4 or 5 days in a row. You know what I'm talking about? When you went down there like the 4th or 5th day and you saw something sitting there on your stump. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Okay.
Tell us that story. This is such a good story.
Okay. So we had been wondering if it was people or if, we're in these woods and it's like, is this really like just what it is? I mean, these things are just here. Like, I saw this thing. It was like 20 miles away. Could this be real? Right. There's things breaking trees. They're walking and it's like, there's people. It's not animals, man. This is people, cause we were confused, and I knew what it was that was out there somewhere because I'd seen it, but I only thought there was maybe 1 or 2 of them kind of thing. You know what I mean? And I definitely didn't think he was all the way where we were. Cause it was like, so I started trying to, do little tricks and experiments. And this is the kind of stuff that we always got outmatched, like somehow they always outmatched us. And what happened was we decided to do the DNA trap. And so we went and picked some peanut butter jar and we unscrewed it and we took the plastic off. Right. And then we put the lid back on and I wrenched this thing on with everything I had. Right. And I'm like, they're going to have to eat through this. And the only thing that's going to get this lid off is something with a big grape ape looking hand, you know what I mean? And so that's what it was, well, it went missing, of course, and like a week later it had a blue lid. I had one jar with a red lid and one jar with a blue lid because they were out of each kind. It was the last ones, right? And I threw it. The blue lid hit a tree. It was the first jar I ever threw. It weighed a lot. I hurt my elbow throwing it because I haven't thrown a baseball in 20 years, right? So I'm like trying to throw this thing. And I realized like 15 milliseconds into like coming forward, I just tore my ligament. You know what I mean? And I'm like, oh, and it hits the palm trees and falls right in the water. Boom, big splash, man. A good sized jar of peanut butter. And so I'm upset, and Melanie's laughing at me, She's like, I thought that was like, you were like, what is this? It's like a girl throw, man. Come on, dude. So I'm like, I know, right? So anyway, I don't know. I might have gave her the juice. She might have said, give me that shit, So anyway, we get one across, but the blue one went in the water. And I had a spot, like when we come in, Mel would come in and then I would stop 20 or 30 yards before. And I had this little spot that I'd walk down on the canal bank and I would try to catch them observing my wife. And she would be there making noises, and I'd be like, I'd think, okay, well, nobody knows I'm in here. I was so quiet and I'm sitting there. And I did that a bunch of times. Well, a couple of days after I threw that jar and it landed in the canal, we were coming back in and we had more peanut butter with us. And we walked past and I just couldn't find my spot really. And I looked and I kept looking and all of a sudden I found my spot and I'm standing there and there's the lid to the blue jar that went in the water sitting down on the stump. And I'm looking and I'm going, look at this. And so she comes and around the tree and she looks and sure enough, they had gone in the canal, pulled the jar out, ate all the contents, I guess. And then they put the lid where I was at, observing them in my hidden spot where I thought no one was trying to,
Yeah.
But they literally put it back where I was sitting, not where she was sitting. They understood that I threw it. I have to assume, and it's a pretty safe assumption, that they were watching and they actually saw me throw that jar. You know what I mean? So I don't know, man, but that's the kind of stuff that was going on when we hadn't seen them in there yet. It wasn't long after that where I started to see the individuals that were actually breaking the trees,
Well, to me,
throwing rocks and doing
to
all
me,
that.
it's like you're not fooling us here. Bring us more of this stuff.
Yeah, the peanut butter, right? Yeah.
Yeah, the chunky, not the smooth.
Yeah, the
Two
blue
different
lid.
jars.
Bring us
It's
the blue
gotta
lid,
be
not the red lid.
The chunky.
I don't think they care, but you have caused us this Pavlovian type response in doing this, haven't you?
Yeah, well, that's the whole thing, right? The reason that we're so successful is they want what we have. Like, first of all, when we realized that there was something walking around in there like people in this particular area, the first thing that we started to do was try to communicate with them, right? And me, I wanted one to come out aggressively, so I started to act like I was taking over the territory, and I started tearing at saplings and screaming and running into the bush at night and knocking on trees and ripping trees around and whipping and hitting branches and doing all that stuff. And immediately got blasted in the chest with a big branch and knocked on my butt, and the camera knocked out of my hand. And we did actually, I was filming that whole thing, but it was me 100%. I was pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing it with aggression. And we knew they were in there. They just followed us. All I did was run down off the levee right where I heard the footsteps. And they were in there moving back as I went down. They were backing up that distance I talk about that they like to keep when you're in their area. They'll watch you, but they're going to keep that distance unless something else goes on. And I was trying to get that to happen because I didn't want to spend 6 years and end up on Bigfoot Odyssey talking about this, man. I wanted to document this and get it over with. And so I had plans, man. And I was like examining data, and we knew we were going to get shots. It was only a question of how stable the shots were going to be and how clear they were going to be, because they're glimpses a lot of time. The ones that I've seen have been moving real quick, or they've been standing still and then they're gone in a second. And they swim through the bush, man. Like, it's freakish how fast they can move through the bush, but they're definitely on 2 feet when they do it. And they're definitely touching the environment because it moves everything they walk through. Is just, it sounds like a steamroller, man. And if they're pissed off, it usually will make you run. It will usually make me run. I'll just say it that way. I usually get a panic attack, man, like instantaneously. go, and that's it, man. We go. You know, if one ever gets pissed, and that has happened, you know. So, but what it did was it gave us a starting point. The Pavlovian thing started when after that, my wife said, "You better calm down because somebody's gonna hurt you." And I was like, and she said, "Why don't we bring some food?" And I was like, we tried everything, right? We tried celery. What we tried was stuff that doesn't grow out in the forest. Right. And they didn't want none of it. They didn't want any of it. They did want that peanut butter though, you know? And then finally one day I found a tree in the swamp and it had apples on it. They were green and they were sour and nasty and hard as rocks. They're called swamp apples. And I thought about it for a second and I said, you know, man, if I had to eat these nasty things my whole life, a golden or red delicious would be like, it'd be like Christmas. And so we started bringing 5 to 10 pounds of apples every time we went. And that's how we won them over, at least to the extent where they would show their faces and come to the edge and peek and watch us or tap on stuff to let us know where to throw the apple next. You know, I've had situations with my wife where this has gotten so good in 3 different areas where we're throwing apples to the one, when he's done eating, he'll tap again where he's at and I'll throw it over there. And then another one will tap over here because there's a group of them. And they know us, man. We had Scott Hundley with us last year, 2019, I think. Yeah. Summer 2019. We took him in there. We hadn't been there in almost 8 months. And I was like, do that thing, baby, do that thing. And so she ran over there and did her thing. But we set up, we created a keyword and we only used that keyword out loud. And the only thing that followed that keyword every time was apples. So we got it to where when they heard that word being yelled, the bushes started smashing everywhere and they were coming towards us. And then there was a canal separating us.
I can tell.
Scotty was freaking out. Scotty was freaking out, dude. His hands were shaking. They were coming. He was trying to put his camera on his tripod. We were getting there, you know, and then he came right in. And right where he came in, I threw an apple. A couple minutes later, he broke a tree in half, and I threw another apple over that way. And I think there might have been another one. But this is the kind of stuff that you can get it to. We got it to that point now in 3 different areas where when we go in at 2 of the areas, they know my wife's voice and they'll respond to it. My area is where the shots are I've been sending you. They respond to my voice, but they seem to be more interested in Melanie than they are in me. So I try to use that and try to get Melanie to bring them out from a safe distance, obviously, and they come to the edge of the tree line and then I'll feed them. And that's when we're documenting all of what you see is a direct result of us having initiated contact and begun to throw some apples to these creatures. And over the last 6 years of dealing with the same groups in these 3 places, they know who we are straight up. And if you were to come down here, the both of you, tomorrow in the morning, we would drive a couple miles from my house. And I would throw some apples into a tree line, and you would begin hearing big ass dudes coming.
Well, we've done it. I've done that.
Yeah.
I've been down there with you, and I hate this feedback.
See,
Go away.
I can imagine seeing a hand. I hear feedback too now. I can imagine seeing a hand sticking up when you throw an apple and just bam, and then boom.
But that's not really it.
I have tried to get them to respond physically in every way that I could think of as a researcher so far and trying to catch that stuff. I have caught them in the tree line, enormous individuals, 10 to 12 feet behind the closest tree and above 2.5 to 3 foot above the 8-foot saw palmettos and ducking down at such a high rate of speed that you don't even think it moves like a small animal moves. You ever seen a mouse run? Sasquatch can do that. Sasquatch can do that. They're like pongids, man. You know what I'm saying? I mean, they have that coordination they have that 12-cylinder brain that's processing with hand-eye coordination that is unequaled, man, unequaled. And I've seen this in small individuals running away from us. And I've seen this in individuals jumping trails. my original sighting, and we filmed it twice now. In the big individual ducking down in that tree line right where I throw my apples, man. And then he throws something up into a tree. You know, there's debate as to whether it was an individual, a small individual, a youngster, or it was a palm frond or something. We know a little bit more about the actual ground that footage was shot on. And inside that creek bed, it's a creek bed, man. It should be mud and tons of debris from the storms. But it looks like it has a housekeeper. There's nothing. There's not a pine needle on the floor under that canopy. For hundreds of yards, that creek runs through there, and it's pristine ground. It's just clean. And it's all up in the trees. All of it. Creating the darkest, thickest canopy. And you can't see through it. And I'm sending you shots now of individuals that are sitting on top of it.
See,
So I
that's so
can't
terrific.
see them from beneath when I'm in there. But from back 100 yards, I can shoot them with my long distance lens up in the tree. And man, it's just nuts. What's going on is nuts. But
Well, if you
So
again, I want to say this, and if you guys want to see some of these shots, you can go to you got cryptoreality.us. That's your members page, right? And then there's
yeah, well,
you went
the
to Patreon.
website is Patreon or cryptoreality.us. But
Well,
Patreon's
Justin Welker mentioned it earlier. He's like, I miss Zaskey on YouTube. You can go. You left YouTube for a good reason, and you went to Patreon. It's $2 a month, and you get the same thing you were getting on YouTube. You know, go to your iPhone, whatever. Go to the App Store, get the Patreon app, download it. Go to Crypto Reality, and to me, it's worth it. And you know, people talk about this subject, and well, people are making money. You guys could not afford to keep doing what you were doing and working. You had to do this, and that's what a lot of people don't understand is if you were going to keep putting out there and going the distance and what you were doing, you had to do this. And I know you struggled with how you were going to do it, and I think you made it as cheap as possible for what you're getting and what you guys are going to see when you go there. It is so well worth it.
Well, and plus you get notifications every time you post something, Mark. I see it; it pops up on my phone, and click on the notification, and I see the pic.
Oh, that's nice. That's good. I was unaware that they were actually treating our members that way. And I was like, man, I hope you see we're getting it, but you never know, you know. So
you don't get as many comments there, but I mean, your hardcores do comment. But something you were talking about, and you know, there's a lot of stuff we don't know, but some things are pretty self-evident about these creatures, I think. And you spoke of them sitting still, hiding. And I don't think this is something that's taught. I think this is born in them. I think they're predisposed to doing these things. And when you catch a lot of these images, they're just poking their face right through the bush where they think that you're not seeing them. Obviously, you're not seeing them, but your camera takes on a lot of the shadow, and you're able to catch these creatures. But they're there. Is the thing. You hear them walk up. And the first time I went in there, look, Mark Zaskey talked me into coming down there. I hadn't been in the woods in almost 10 years at this point, and wasn't really happy about going, but you know, I said, okay, I'm going to go do this. I almost threw up just going in. And if it would have looked anything remotely like Mississippi woods, I probably wouldn't have gone. But just, you know, the way that we went in, and no one would believe where this is, that these creatures were there. They would just say, there's just no way. But they are there. And we went in, the first day we went in, we knelt down, we were 500-600 yards in, and I caught one on camera right there, gray face.
Yeah.
Just on accident. You know,
that was an accident.
Had no idea what I was doing, but you know, it's a pretty good, and you can see him just slowly fade back into the bushes. He's not.
And you know what? He doesn't, you know what he looks like? He doesn't look like Patty. What he looks like is a giant primate Kermit the Frog.
Yeah, troll. Looks like a troll.
Nuts.
The little
But
troll
that's
doll.
what they look like. You know?
Yeah. Gray face.
A lot of them anyway. A lot of them. Yeah.
What's the deal with the gray face? A lot of these that you get, their face looks green. And obviously that's perfect camouflage. What do you think's going on there? That's
something that that is the meat and potatoes of why Bigfoot is not validated, in my opinion. You talk about the gray skin, right? So black gray skin. Like you have two images here on your background, right? And there's one of the Sasquatches, the one that's on the right side of the actual, I'd be on the other side right there. So, because I'm reversed. So that guy right there has the black skin, right? But you can see the highlights and they look kind of gray. This guy over here has got a little more highlights and his skin appears to be gray, green. There's a little blue in it a little bit there too. The bottom line is that's diffusion. That's the diffusion of light. And a black skin or a gray skin or white skin. So if you had like a gas gauge and at one side of it, it was white over here. And then on the other side, it was black, right? Mm-hmm. You would call that the achromatic scale, right? Color scale. And achromatic colors are neutral coloration, right? But neutral colorations will absorb and then retransmit colors, right? Well, certain colors, like direct sunlight, is not diffused. And so the individual, like right here, would be in a direct kind of light source, right? A diffused light source, like say light that is sunlight that's bouncing off a canopy, would show on this individual on this side over here, his face would appear green. His face would appear green. The diffused canopy light would make that individual look green. And if he was back 6 or 7 feet watching you in those green bushes, you'd never know he was standing there. Yeah. And trust me, man, I'm wondering, why are the bushes moving 25 feet from me and I'm seeing weird colors and flashes and chrome and all this stuff. And then all of a sudden the canopy stopped moving and the shafts of light dissipated. And there in front of me was a bronze-skinned Sasquatch standing in the same hole that the cuttlefish was standing in 5 seconds earlier, right? All these colors were going like this. And it looked like eyes mixed in with these colors. But all it was the shade underneath that canopy and shafts of direct sunlight and diffused sunlight bouncing off those plants and striking his oily skin while he was in that relative shade under the canopy. And you get the most incredible optical illusion when combined with the hair that they have.
See, that's so cool, because when I first subscribed to your page and I saw the green ones, I thought, well, I wonder, are they, picking up the mud and putting it on them? Or since they're in the water so much, could there be, algae growing on them a little bit? Or, just picking up the algae and just, putting it on their face before they try to look at you. And
well, Brad, listen, that's an eyewitness account from Carrie right there, the mud, right? So, but here's the thing. Carrie's account was what started me to try to figure out what else was going on, because I had seen many individuals and it appeared that they were painting their faces. It appeared that way. I had white, titanium white down the middle of one of these guys' faces, a white stripe. I don't know. I caught this guy in 2015 3 or 4 times, and the dude freaked me out, yelled at me one time, man. And when he's in direct sunlight, it looks chrome, and then it's got these weird. It just looks like an MC Escher or like a Pablo Picasso. It's like weird, right? Because the light's moving. It's like, but you throw the hair in there, and then you throw a sedentary lifestyle. All right, try to imagine how much vegetation a 500-pound gorilla eats every day, and how much saliva and chlorophyll gets in their hair.
40 pounds a day.
Now imagine a 1,000-pound adult male Sasquatch, how much food that individual has to eat outside of the carnivorous activities, right? We're omnivores now, and we're thinking about this. I have hair samples right now that have algae firmly embedded on it. Firmly embedded on it. It ain't going nowhere. And these individuals, where I'm pulling these hair samples, are coming up green. They absolutely will grow algae in their hair. I put film out on that. It's on the page. You've seen that, correct, Brad? The polar bear film?
No, I haven't.
Okay.
You gotta go back. You gotta go way back to see it.
You do gotta go way back. Yeah. It's one of the first things on the thing. But the bottom line is this.
I will now.
Dairy animals will absolutely chlorophyll. In addition to that, we've got straight up plant matter. these guys are living in the swamps. So obviously we've got algae, we've got plant matter all through their hairs. It's evidence. I have samples to prove it.
But what you just said though earlier about just how the light and how it, messes with them just depending on the circumstances, the time of day, etc. That makes sense. I mean, that does make sense.
You can actually prove it. You can prove it to yourself. You can go to Sherwin-Williams, get a gray, medium gray paint swatch, okay, with a little clear coat on it. Hold it up against any color, and it will reflect that color. Gray. It's the only one that'll do it. White won't do it. I don't know if black does it, maybe a little, but gray will reflect the color you put it next to every time.
Now, also, there's a little more to their physical makeup, and it really is to me the most fascinating aspect of their anatomy. Their hair is very special. Their hair has, under a microcam, I mean, I don't know if you had a chance to examine any of it on the Patreon page, but I have plenty of footage of the microcam examinations with artificial light sources striking the hairs. It's anomalous, man. Oh, well, here's the hair right here.
There we go.
The crystal clear ones will take on just about any color you put behind it. You can see it right here. It has chrome aspects on it where it's gleaming off of it. And then the leaf in the background, that's actually a leaf. You can see the clear hair is picking up the green. Now, if you pull back from that, say
that is cool,
25 feet, and you have a 7.5-foot individual covered in those hairs, there it is under a dead leaf. The hair is amber under this dead leaf. I put a dead leaf in the background.
That is trippy.
Colors, man, and the phenomenon is called aberration, right? So we get a lot of aberration, but with the hair and everything that hair is capable of, and the achromatic skin, when the sunlight hits it, what ends up happening in some of these cases is a phenomenon called the forbidden color spectrum. If you really want to understand how it is that Sasquatch gets away with what it gets away with in so many situations when there are people researching in this area, how is it they're not bringing this? How are these things avoiding? Read about the forbidden color spectrum. Canopy light and the achromatic coloration of the Sasquatch will create shades of color that the human eye cannot see without training. And you can look all this up. There are shades of blues and greens and reds and yellows, and their hair contains all of those colors, in addition to many of the hair samples being crystal clear. So if he's standing in front of a tree, you're getting whatever's behind him in the hair, and you're getting whatever is refracting from the diffused canopy light, creating shades that the human eye either can't see or has a great deal of difficulty to see. Basically, to you, they are invisible, though not truly invisible. They're standing.
Well, I mean, it's almost obvious that that's the case. The stuff that you've done with the hair and what I have asserted myself, this is just what I personally believe, that the hair diffuses the light. It doesn't reflect. It absorbs, diffuses, whatever, the light. And this is the reason I believe we don't catch them on game cameras. I think they walk in front of game cameras all the time, but that beam of light has got to hit something and reflect back. Now, why do we see anything? Because the light reflects off of it. Now, if it's not reflecting light, you're just not going to see it. Or you may see some of it, but it's not going to make that form, that shape, that even if you're looking for it, you're just not going to see it. And I believe that's the case to me. Now, the guy that I saw was black. Now, I know I don't see any way that he could look green, but all he would have to do is to get into a shadow. Now, I've got a picture here of, I don't know if you can see that.
Yeah, that's a great shot. That's the Florida Bigfoot. I can see him plain as day.
That is exactly what I saw. And you can see those two trees right there in the middle. He's about 3/4 of the way up, leaning out. And
is that a Florida Sasquatch? Because that looks like a Florida Sasquatch.
That's Brooksville.
Oh my God. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, is that Florida?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Brooksville, Florida. But that is exactly what I saw. You can see why I thought it was a black guy when I saw him. So, you know, they don't
I
all
thought the
have,
same thing.
yeah, they don't all have this green. And I've got this. This is not clear at all. I've got this so clear. If anybody wants to see it, we're very clear. Email me. I'll send it.
Well, that's
to you.
filtered too.
And I've got that is filtered. I've got the
Yeah.
original.
But
And
the
you
other
can
thing
see
too
he's
is
just leaning
it
out there.
depends. It depends on what he's under. That's the thing.
Okay.
And this is what I noticed. I haven't never seen that that raw picture. But I'm going to take a guess. I'm going to guess that he's blending in with what he's standing in.
You know,
the actual color of it, is
the
he blending
body,
in with what
his body is, yeah, you can see his outline really well, and you can see his foot. He's kneeling down behind these two trees, leaning out here, and the guy that got it, I sent him the camera. We took. People were sending us money back when we didn't really care too much. People were still sending us money, so we just saved it up and started buying cameras for people. And he was the first guy we bought a camera for, and that was one of the ones that he had gotten, and it was Wookie Looking Bigfoot is the channel. You can go check it out. I don't think he's doing anything now. I think he got sick and moved to Ohio, but he lived in Brooksville, and they were hearing screams and knocks and just a lot of activity. But he was walking. This is a still frame from video, okay? And he was walking dead at this thing, and it's leaning its head out there sideways, looking at him. He gets 30 feet from it, and of course the camera's moving, so there's a lot of interlace going on. That was literally the clearest frame, and he just turned and went the other way for whatever reason. He was heading straight at it, and then just maybe subconsciously, you know, he said, okay, I don't need to go that way. I need to turn and go this way. But he was still out there doing it. And I give him props for that.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great shot too. But that's like what, people are like, oh man, look at, why is it always, well, that's what they are, man. You know what I mean? They're embedded in the environment. That's what you're going to see, man. Unless he walks out, then that's what you're going to see. They're embedded.
There's a reason we don't have great footage of them. What happened with me, I believe firmly, is because I was there so much for 7 years. They knew who I was. They were familiar with me. Okay. And I think they had tried to run me out of there several times. I was just too stupid to know what was going on. But that one day, all these things came together, and I crossed that line, and I had, it was the turkeys, and I think it was a lot of things that he decided to come out. I think he was laying there on that bank watching me the whole time. And then when this action started happening, he gets up and starts moving deliberately. Now, if he wanted to hurt me, he'd have slipped up on me and got me, and would have been able to do it easily. He wanted me to see him.
You'd have just been in David's next book.
Sure. Absolutely.
You would have known it.
But he was slick about it. He was very slick about it. He got in a place where he could see me, but I could only see a little bit of him, just the top of his shoulders, head up. And he kept looking. I guess I'm thinking to make sure I wasn't pointing my gun at him. And then he made his way around and eventually came up toward me. And I'm thinking the whole time that this is a black guy and he's wearing something weird. Didn't look right, obviously. But when he got to that, just before that tree, and I started to realize that, this is something else. But even then, this has to be a guy. How's he doing this? Because there's this level of disbelief. When it's that sudden moment of realization and you're not out there looking for them, and this happens to you, this would happen to anybody, I believe, that they would waffle back and forth trying to figure out this has to be something else. And then obviously this is a Sasquatch. This is what everybody's been seeing and reporting in the woods. It's a Sasquatch, especially when the mouth comes open and the noises start coming out. So, but that was it. That I showed. When I saw that, I was like vindicated. I felt so relieved that someone had caught a picture of exactly what I had seen. You saw caveman, long hair, and that was just one variation of the many that are out there. Obviously, the guy that I saw had hair on his head like a gorilla. It was very short, but longer hair on the body, but not a lot of hair. Sparse. He was a mess. He had leaves and mud, and he was caked up, and I could see his dark gray skin underneath, but his face was black. I just don't see how that face could look green. Do you think it's just these, because some of them do have gray, black faces. Do you think it's just the ones with the gray face that look like that, or what?
No, not at all, man. I do think it's a different kind of like, okay, there's black, the color black, and then there's Sasquatch black, and it's different.
It's like purple.
It's purple. It's purple, right? I use it to identify them in my films. It's the easiest way. It's a red flag. I see purple in there. There's nothing purple in my research area, dude. That's black. That's the way my camera software like reconfigures black. That's what it is. It's having trouble. I can make adjustments, I'm sure, but I'm not gonna, because I like that. It points them out to me. I get an idea. There's somebody over there. So okay, let me go back to what was going on. Let me turn the volume up. Hey Mel, there's somebody just walked up over here. That's on the footage, right? Now I'm looking at the footage and I got this purple color. And it's interesting because if they back into shadow like this, they're going to turn green. The black ones will turn green. It's just really, really dark. Really, really dark. It's tough to, they're the hardest ones, man. I can't tell you, man. I was looking at all week long. I'm looking at this one individual from an expedition that was shot in 2018. I've been trying to catch this guy clear or bring this guy out. We've caught him 100 times, but he's so black and there's so much purple usually. I just, for some reason, man, he will not, and I think it's light sensitivity, he will not come forward enough to where you can get him. I can see him in there chewing the apple. I can see his teeth every now and then flash white. I can see his pink tongue sticks out. It's bright pink, man. I know he's eating the apple. I see the white chunk come up. I see it chewing, the white chunk bouncing around for a second. You know what I mean? But he's in there, and dude, this guy is so frustrating. But during every one of the clips where I'm scrubbing through and I'm looking, I'm seeing him, I'm seeing the green. It's just not as much. You know what I mean? The gray is a bright canvas and it picks it right up. The black, it picks it up, but only on the lighter spots, which would be where the sun's hitting it in diffusion. So yes, if the diffusion hits it.
And when there's no sun, you can definitely see the gray skin. If it's overcast, they just look gray. And that's like the one that we picked up, that I picked up. Well,
you know what they look like, right? They look dead. They look like dead people, man. They look like monsters. This bullshit where everybody's trying to be friends. I got news for you, bro. When you see one, that's the last thing you're ever going to think again.
Yeah.
That's the last thing.
That's a fact.
All that nonsense. This is a wild creature. This thing will hurt you. Listen, there are places set up all over the country by the U.S. government, and you go in them all the time. And if it's got wildlife management practices, if you go in an area, a wildlife management area, just understand Sasquatch live there too. That's a reality all over the country. If you got management practices, it ain't about man. It's about not taking too much so they don't come out. That's what it is. And
makes sense.
I've got documentation of all this stuff. But I can tell you, if you stick with it and you listen to what the bush tells you, best advice, man, best advice. Stick with it. Listen to what the bush tells you, not Facebook, not YouTube, none of that stuff. The bush will tell you what to do next, man. The data you got today will lead you to more data tomorrow if you examine it properly. You keep going, and pretty soon you have a body of work, man, and you can show people physical evidence, proof.
And write it down. Write it down. Make a ledger, make a journal, write down what you're experiencing. And a mistake that you and I made, Mark, I think you came up with this little this thing after I had come down there, was ABF. Mm-hmm. ABF. Do you remember the day we heard always be filming? Do you remember the day that we heard the talking? I think it was the second day. The second day we went in, had no recorder going, no camera going. We're walking in, right? And you hear, and they're 30 feet away, just right there. And Mark are looking at each other like, did you hear this? Yeah, I hear this. And I think I might have yelled at them or something. I don't know. I did something stupid, but they shut up eventually, and no camera on, no nothing on, but have your stuff going. Take enough batteries with you that you can have your film or whatever going continuously. That's my advice. I experienced that myself. And I think I got spoiled because you have such a viable area, at least area 4 where we went, that we were experiencing something every single time we went. We got the guy that we walked past, and he took off running and hit the water. That scared
man.
the ever living out of me. And and I was already,
that happened so many times, Kerry. They used to love doing that. Big cannonballs,
Well, I was already, tense. You couldn't drive a nail up my butt the whole time that I was out there. It was like that.
You kept saying, man, this is claustrophobic.
It is.
Like, because the bushes are like imposing on you, like that down the trail. They're like trying to touch you. You know what I mean? So like, literally, like they can be real close in that tree line because it's so thick. But
5 feet away, they could be there and you wouldn't know it. It's that kind of thick. It's that kind of thick. But what they do, because they have to have a clear line of sight to see you, is they got to stick their eyeball, their face a little bit. And I mean, you catch a lot of long shots. You get, and some of them a little blurry, but you see that bone structure, that symmetry, that
ridge brow,
that brow ridge and nose, and those three balls. I call it the 3 ball thing because you see that a lot. They don't all look like that. You've got one that is black, and when you sent it to me, I saw it immediately, and he's got this serious apex going on. And he's back. He's probably 40 yards away. And email me. I'll send you the picture, and I'll point out where everything is. I sent it to Brad. Okay. And Brad was like, oh, I'm having trouble. I can't see it. He was looking at the bush up here, and I marked out the eyes and nose.
Yeah, I was looking up above it going,
this is the problem. This is the problem.
This is the cone-headed guy that
yes,
that was in Okay, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, classic.
He was close. That Sasquatch was real close by, man. When we were looking at his hunt, I was in his hunting blind.
Oh, okay.
Digging around, and he was right there behind us. 35, 40 feet away, max.
Email me. I'll send you guys that picture. Email me that you want to see the black one. I'll send you both, and I'll mark them out. But my point is this, is I think because you have no context, most people that are seeing this, they're not there with you. They're not seeing what you're seeing. You know what's outside of that frame. Okay. And most people don't when they first see that. So they don't know the distance. They don't know really what to look for. And, and I think this is a lot of the problem people have with actually seeing this creature and looking for something different. I think they're looking for Patty, or they're looking for this ape looking thing. What kind of advice can you give on that?
Oh, well, they do look like that. I have images of Sasquatch shot here in Florida, North Carolina, Maine, that resemble that type of hominoid.
You do. They're rare. You hardly ever see hair on the face. I've seen one that you have that's got really hair on the face.
Old guys got a beard here and there, but no, they have an interesting. Basically, there has to be something interesting going on with the genes, because what we're seeing is in a given group, and I'm assuming based on the assumption that in an area is one group, I'm going to say, and it's one particular area, the creek bed, I'm studying a group of Sasquatch. Whether it's 5 groups together, I don't know. In that group, there are individuals that look like the Incredible Hulk. There's another individual that looks like Caesar from Planet of the Apes, but he's 7.5 feet tall and will rip your head off your bodies. Like no trouble at all. Can climb a tree so fast the bark flies off of it. I've heard this as he goes up. There are individuals that look like trolls from the movie Wild Things. There are individuals that I've identified on film that I'm currently trying to redocument to prove. I have several shots of this individual, partial headshots, that his head has to be 15 inches across, and he has to be 10 feet tall. His head has to weigh 70 pounds. This individual is massive, and I've seen him on thermal, and I don't know. I'm not sure what to say about this yet, but I'm on it. And I know we've heard it, and I had an eyewitness with me when it roared, whatever this thing is. It may be a mutated Sasquatch or some kind of a, inbreeding accident thing or something. I don't know, but there's something going on in this one particular research area where there are.
He's like a 7 foot tall white guy, right?
One of them looks
Yeah.
just like a 7 foot tall white guy, dude. Yeah, he's got. But I'm talking about white, like the lines in the middle of the road at night. White.
Oh wow.
Actual white, like my shirt.
I'm talking about an absence of pigment, an albino white. That's what I'm talking about. And I'm talking about
That's
the
trippy.
oculus, the retinas on this particular creature, on this particular individual, are milky. They're nocturnal. Based on what I see nocturnal animals' eyes looking like, some of these guys have the milky pupils. And sometimes you can mistake it for eye shine. Daytime eye shine.
Maybe it's albino Sasquatch. I mean, everything else is albino. Yeah.
One thing I can say this for sure. I have not been able to photograph an auburn colored one that I'm convinced was an auburn colored one. We've only been seeing these grays and blacks and variations of the grays and blacks. And I can tell you this. The closest, like some of them look like orgs, man, from Tolkien. You know what I'm saying? Like Hobbit, like the real orgs, monsters. Kerry, I've had to have shown you a few of those shots of these things that they don't look like Sasquatch, man.
Yep, I've got one. He looks
They're
like
obviously Sasquatch, but how do we know? Like, just hear me out on this for 1 second. If great white sharks are left alone, they will continue to grow.
Okay.
They can grow, man, over 25 feet, man. There have been specimens that go way back. This is true, and it could be true of these creatures. We do not know how big they get or how old they get. How do we know these things? They can't live to be 275 years old. How do we know? We don't. I can tell you that there are individuals that I can tell you they're bigger than 10 feet. They're bigger than 10 feet, 1,200 pounds. The head is enormous. They move through the trees silently. I mean, frighteningly silent. And suddenly there's something there and it's moving. And my wife is going, there is something really big right there in the tree line. And I'm like, shoot it, baby, shoot it, And so we're shooting it, and we come back with images that are insane. I sent you the one in the email earlier. It looks like the Incredible Hulk.
Yeah. Oh, I showed it to Brad too. Oh, this is the black one. This is the black one, by the way.
Right, that's
here.
the guy when I was examining that individual's hunting blind. And Melanie heard a noise and I turned around and shot footage. But this is me lightening the film up. In real time, he was in pitch blackness. Kerry, this is a black-skinned Sasquatch.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
And this is why I say, here's evidence. You can see the olive tone in his skin.
You can. He kind of looks like everything else, but that's a tall apex. I don't know if anybody can see my cursor here. Can anybody see it?
That's a big dude, man.
Can you see my cursor?
No.
In a depression.
Ah.
He's standing in a depression that's approximately 3.5 feet deep, and he's approximately 2 feet taller than we are.
Yeah,
That's, to me, this is the classic look, what most people look for when they think Sasquatch, but this looks like a person. That's a hooded nose, that sub-Saharan South African, that really broad nose, but it's a hooded nose, long upper lip. You can see his mouth clearly. You can't see his eyes, but you can see where the brow is. There's leaves up there on his forehead. There's that, you can see the tall apex there, and those leaves are just covering his forehead, but his face is right below that. And now there's this other one here, and this, you talk about him being old. This guy right here has no teeth. He has to have no teeth. You can see I outlined it there with the green, so you can kind of see it. But that's a green face, and I mean that's, to me, that's that bone structure that you should.
Achromatic aberration. That's aberration. Yeah, aberration of color and light. Yeah.
You see his outline, but I think he's old, because to me, and you can see there's a little bump right there on his mouth, just to the right there. We see where his mouth is. You see a little bump right there. That happens to people when they there's a vitamin D deficiency, and you can get those little bumps right there on the side of your mouth. I think that's what that looks like to me, but it looks like he has no teeth, like he's old. And this is just my theory here. I really have no clue, but I mean, that's a green face. There's another one here. And this was,
that's That's the old man. That's the creek bed. That's the old man.
The old man. He's leaning out there at an angle sideways, and you see that
Just turn your
round
head a
thing in the
little bit to
middle.
left.
Yeah, he's just leaning out. But I've got clearer images of all this. If anybody wants to see them, I've got a lot clearer stuff. If you, like I said, if you want to see it, I've got clear images. But to me, it's proof. Mark, I know you got to get up early, man. I hate to end all this. Will you take just a few questions before we jet out of here?
Let's do it.
If you guys, get your questions together. There's 451 people in chat right now, and there's a little over 1,200 watching that are not in chat. So we got a decent crowd here tonight. If you got questions, put them in caps for us, please. Whatever you got for Mr. Zaskey. In the meantime, I want to do some shout outs. Roxanne Correes, I hope you got that drone. Congratulations again. I sent it out a week ago. Last Monday. So you should have that. Big Rick, shout out to you, buddy. We certainly appreciate all your support. Paul Holland, thank you so much for the PayPal contribution. Thank you to everybody that donates to Crypto Reality, obviously, to Bigfoot Odyssey. Yeah, we definitely appreciate everyone that contributes. It's such a huge help. Here we go. Let's see. Mr. Lee 3PO. Mark, what are you hoping to achieve next in your research, and what is your ultimate goal? Good question.
Okay. Well, we've achieved what we set out to achieve with physical evidence. I have what we need, right? So what we're still trying to do, though, is conduct experiments to get one of these guys to come out and literally, I just want to toss him an apple in the open on film. And so it's been 6 years, and we still have that goal that we want to be able to toss one when he comes out finally, and we're convinced that one will do that eventually. So we're just going to keep at it.
Good deal.
Good question.
Brad, did you have a question?
No, I just said good question.
Okay. You raise your hand. So it's always a good idea to raise your hand if you have a question. Gene Husband, Mark, have you ever heard them laugh? It's deep. You feel it in your chest. We heard them.
No, I never heard one laugh. I've heard a lot of other stuff, but not laughing.
You remember the first night you and me and Melanie were all sitting there? We stayed till dark. We're like 5 feet from the canal. We're in between the levee and the canal. We're sitting there in the chairs, and there's this guy coming toward us, or whatever is coming toward. I say guy, something's coming toward us, and he's creeping. And I went up. You gave me the headphones and the high sensitivity microphone recorder, and I went. It was like a Zoom, and I walked up. I had the headphones on, and I was up there for what, about 30 seconds, maybe. Yeah, that's what I thought I heard was hush up, hush up. It sounded like laughing, but I just took them off. I was like, no, I don't think I can't do this. Went down there and gave it back to Mark. I said, I can't do it, because when you have the headphones on, you can't tell how far away they are. It sounded like it was like right there, and I didn't want to hear it anymore.
I think they were. I think that night they were within 35 or 40 feet of us,
and kept getting closer. And
one guy did, for sure. Crazy.
Let's see, Brett S. Any good places near Jacksonville, Florida? I don't know if you know that or not.
Not sure about that. I know that if you're in Florida, what you and you're interested in, having an opportunity to see the kind of habitat that they live in, you just find the nearest cypress swamp. If you find a place that's got 8 to 10,000 or better acres, and it's a cypress swamp, there's a good chance, if you're in the state of Florida, that this area has a history of sightings. It's their haunt. Cypress swamps are their haunt in the state of Florida, in the South, really. So.
Okay, Roxanne, good deal. You did get it. It's at your mom's house. I used the second address because I didn't want to send it to a P.O. box just because it's so big. So I just, you're welcome. Enjoy that. Let's see. Have you tried singing to them? They like that?
Yeah, we actually have done that. I have a film on the Crypto Reality website where I play some of my music for them, and we did manage to get our best piece of footage to date on that day. It was a black-skinned individual, sort of resembles the guy on this side right here.
Yeah.
have footage of that individual. It was the same kind of thing that you've been describing and what they've done since the beginning. They kind of try to ease up on the cover and then kind of put their faces up against it to watch us through the vines and stuff, or they'll literally come through it and just look. And we have one doing that, on the day that played my instrument and did some vocals for him.
To me, one of the best proofs is what I'll call it that you have. Melanie caught, you were doing a segment and there's a hole in the bush like this, and you've got this in the intro to the Crypto Reality Show. In some of them you do, where you kind of see something and then it blinks like a couple of times, and its eyes are like this big, and it's like a huge chimp, and his face is just right there in this hole. It's just it's an incredible, amazing thing. You guys have to go.
That's a startling thing to see, man. It's a startling thing to see that. And then I'll tell you right now, it's even more startling when you see the sun playing around on their face. And I've had that experience too, where it's confusing and you don't understand what you're seeing, and all of a sudden it stops and you're like, oh God. And then when he sees you, as soon as he sees you, it's like weird. It's like when they notice that you notice, they're gone.
It's on.
They're so they're processing so quick, man. It's like you can see it, and yet still calm somehow. It's weird. They have a calmness about them, Kerry. They
know you're not coming after them.
I'm thinking, what am I going to do? I mean, I have, but I mean,
Speaking of going after them, and this is a good segue. This is a good segue. Have you seen a baby Sasquatch, Wendy McDonald?
Yeah,
this is a good segue to going after them. Tell us that. I know what you're going to say.
Okay. So when we first went into Area 4, there was big guys following us, and then I had the thing where I ran in there and they threw the branch at me in the dark, and we started to notice that after that it wasn't really a lot of noise following us. You know what I mean? It was like they went, oh shit, like this dude figured it out, right? There's we're here, and so we let them know real quick, man. We had a situation where we got growled at. As a matter of fact, it was the next morning, 5 a.m., maybe 7 or 8 hours after we had the incident with getting hit with the branch. We got growled at. That individual moved off. I never got super close like that to a big one again, but on multiple occasions. One time in particular, I was within 3 feet of snatching the hair on the back of a small.
I've got that picture.
Oh, yeah, man.
Well, he's 8 feet tall, and you're right there. Your head's here. His head's way up here, and all you see his face and this wide nose, and he's just right there.
And that's where there was another situation where an individual that was it couldn't have been big. It sounded more like a dog or something. You know what I mean? But it was like 2 steps. It was just small, and I'm like, this got to be a little dude, right? And so I was like, well, I'm going to stop at this tree and stop, and you keep going. And he'll keep going. And then you go out. And when you go out and you make the corner, I'm going to come up behind him and try to get him. Right. This was the plan. Right. And me, man, I'm just like, I just want this shit over with. You know what I mean? That's all I just wanted to get it over with, man. And so we did that. And I chased this individual through those bushes, bro. I mean, running fast as I could. And I'm looking at a blur darting in the bushes are. I mean, it's like one of those things where you watch like a Steven Spielberg movie and you see something run into the little weeds and you see the weeds move like 50 miles an hour, but you don't see what it is anymore.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That kind of thing. I almost had that guy. I had his apex and his shoulders, and the way he was running was flailing. He was flailing, and I saw his hands clearly. There was hair that was as long down to his knuckles, that was long and stringy, and he was covered in short hair, and it was different lengths on his forearm. And I could see it when it came up. His hair went like this, like whipping every time he swung his arm. And then the ground went down and he disappeared. And then I was trying to get him right then. I stopped because he dropped down almost like he went in a hole. But the bushes kept moving. So the ground actually, the elevation changed. And there was too much ground bush, and I just became unwilling to chase him into there because on the end he was headed to was where I just got popped by a branch the week before, and I knew there was a couple big ones somewhere around there.
That was a little guy.
I ran the other way, man. Yeah, this was a little guy. This was a little guy. Now, the one you were talking about earlier, that guy stood his ground and let me walk right up to him. And that was the last time that I ever decided to go in, because I don't know what would happen. I thought his body was the trunk of a burned out date palm, or saw palmetto rather.
Wow.
The side of his body was within 5 feet of me. And the footage, you can see how big he is. He's at least 3 feet taller than me.
Now he looks like Kong.
He's going like this.
Yeah.
And he's literally looking down at me, man.
Yeah,
you can see his eyeballs looking down at me, man. I'm standing there like this.
It's his right eye is kind of
trying
like
to find
this.
him.
But
It's nuts, isn't it?
Well, he's got a palm. Well, this feedback is killing me. Go away. It's like sawgrass or something, really tall weeds or cane or something. And he's standing behind these canes, and you see how wide his nose is from one side to the other. And you see one eye clearly and his other one, and he's looking down, and you're the top of your head. He's 3 feet above you.
Yeah, dude.
And Melanie's
big,
filming you going in there. And I remember you saying, Carrie, I was freaked out. I was just looking all over because it's like you had this feeling they were there, but he was right there and you couldn't see him. But there's something about the camera that that shows things that you can't see with your eyes, obviously. But
the thing is I'm standing there and there's this big, there's a whole group of burned out saw palmetto trunks. And then there's a ton of green and vines and all this stuff. And so I just see the exact color of the saw palmetto trunk from my peripheral and assume that since there's 40 other saw palmetto trunks everywhere around me, that this is just another saw palmetto trunk. But this is a testament to the discipline and the emotional intelligence that these creatures have. And this is a real situation that happened and was documented. And in looking at these situations, I could sit here until I'm blue in the face, and 99 out of 100 people are not even going to, there's no way they're going to think this is possible. But that's because you've been educated to think that. What I can tell you is if you get your education from Earth instead, you will sound like me after a little while. You know what I mean?
Lord help us.
That's a perfect segue into you got to check his Patreon channel out.
Yeah, you definitely do.
I definitely have to check out stuff way in the back because I just looked.
Yeah, go back to the beginning.
Yeah,
go back to the beginning. Crypto Reality on Patreon. Let's take one more question, and this is a really good one, Mark. I think this may reveal some things. Francis Mendez, what is it that you're doing differently that you are catching them on camera more?
It's a good question.
Well, first of all, we're going. Okay.
Not on the couch.
We go. So you got to go. So, and that's not to say that other researchers aren't going, but I did it full time for 5 years. 5 years, 24/7, 7 days a week. Anytime I wanted, I went in the field, and we went over 500 times in those 5 years. So going a lot, right? Getting to know our area. I know every inch of that ground that those Sasquatch stand in and watch us from, because I've been in and examined the ground itself and found the tracks. That's how we knew absolutely they were in there. The first time I walked in the place, I found a huge track. The first thing I walked up on was a huge track. And I know enough to know that people don't walk around in these rattlesnake infested areas or water moccasin infested areas barefoot in here. It's just not
spiders.
I'm in the middle of a creek bed, man, like in an area that really literally is you got to behave yourself when you're in there. It's a national park, man. You know what I mean? Like there's rangers everywhere and they're all over us all the time. Right. So what am I doing differently? I refuse to quit. I refuse to take shit off anybody about what I'm doing. It's real. I know what's going on. I'm perfectly rational. I can see with my own 2 eyes. I can hear with my own 2 ears. I can film them and I can show you. We have the physical evidence. At the end of the day, that's 99% of it. You don't have the footage if you don't go. You can't examine the footage if you don't go. The other thing is I remain objective, right? I don't have a handicap in that I have seen them. Most people haven't. They're at a disadvantage because there's always that lack of confidence that you're actually pursuing a real creature. Until you know something yourself to your core, you don't trust it. Think about it, right? So in the end, there's that disadvantage for most people. What I do differently is I rely on what I saw and what the forest tells me every time I go in on where I'm going to shoot next and what experimentation I'm going to deploy when I go in. I take it seriously. It's a science. Observation is science, right? Empirical evidence is derived from observation. It's the data gleaned from observation and various experimentation. That's all this is. If you begin with that and you continue with that, like I said, it won't be long. You'll be sounding just like me.
Yeah, well, one of the first things you told me, stabilization is another thing.
Stabilization, that's another thing, yeah. And I got a wife that's willing to shoot footage. And that's huge because a lot of these things are male, and for one reason or another, they seem to want to look at my wife, man. You know what I'm saying? They're watching Melanie intensely, and she's filming a lot of the shots that you see. My wife films. I find them, I begin the experimentation, and then together we document. So.
Well, Mark, man, thank you so much for joining us here tonight. I really appreciate it. Hopefully, we'll be seeing you very soon. If not this third, fourth, the next third, fourth. I'll make plans. It just, like I said, work stuff came up, and I might have to go do it. I'll know more Friday, and I'll get with you, let you know. Brad, thank you for being here as always. You're a fantastic co-host. Make sure you go to Patreon, ladies and gentlemen. Patreon. Crypto Reality. It's $2 a month. Just go check it. Just go check it out, or cryptoreality.us and become a member. This obviously helps Mark and Melanie, fund their research, and PayPal in the description for Bigfoot Odyssey. For those of you that enjoy donating to us, we thank you so much for all the help and support. Shout out to Duke Spirits for supporting Bigfoot Odyssey. Shout out to Patriot Supply for supporting Bigfoot Odyssey. Thank you all so much. Have a good night, ladies and gentlemen.
Good night.